All right, one last look here, traffic and weather for your ride in on this Tuesday morning. Couple accidents to report, one at Corley Mill at Hunley Drive, another one at Wise Ferry and Augusta Highway, one at Killian Road and I-77, then one at I-77 southbound at I-26. Today, high of 45, partly cloudy. Tomorrow, breezy, partly sunny, high of 58, warmest it's been in a while. And then Thursday, sunny with the high of 55. Currently 36 in downtown Columbia, here on The Game. Oh, 9 o'clock on your Tuesday morning. Welcome in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Veltri along with you here. Maybe numb's not the right song to come in for because we're not numb, Jack. We're fired up. We're excited. Things are happening. Things are moving. Yes, it was a disappointing season. We're trying to right that wrong, and we're in the process of making that happen.
I like Lincoln Park, though. I think it's
I do too.
It's okay. At least the beat I think works. It's nice to come in here on a 9 a.m. on a Tuesday morning in December, a freezing morning, and hear some Lincoln Park. I got no problem with that.
Is that one of those songs that for our generation and like millennial, I guess?
God, what year did that come out?
It
was definitely 2000.
Early 2000s, right at 2000?
2003.
2003? Okay.
Jeez, yeah. So
but I feel like that's a song collectively everybody knows. Like you may not be like a fan of that genre or Linkin Park specifically, but everybody knows the song.
When you hear, you could hear it without the words. You could
exactly.
You could hear it just like we did right here, and you're like, oh, numb.
You know what that is?
Yes.
But yes, we are not numb, even though it's cold outside and you stand outside long enough, you might get numb. Are you wearing shorts today?
No.
Is that just when it snows?
No, I'm wearing. I think so. It's just I'm wearing pants today. I'm wearing pants and a sweatshirt. So.
Okay, we're trying to stay warm and trying to look ahead to 2026 for South Carolina football, and we obviously knew this offseason was going to be full of a lot of important decisions and hires that had to be made, starting, of course, with offensive coordinator. Now, I don't know if everybody thought we would get to the Tuesday in the week after the season ended to finally get things nailed down, but here we are, and it does seem, again, this is not pen to paper yet from what it seems like, but last night, Pete Thamel reporting that South Carolina's finalizing their deal with Kendall Briles as the school's new offensive coordinator, and an agreement is expected to come together in the near future. That can mean today, tomorrow, whatever it may be. But, again, when these other people, NACOs, are reporting on this, that means it is 99.9% going to happen. Barring something insane at the last second, Kendall Briles is going to be South Carolina's new offensive coordinator next year.
Yeah, I'm wearing my purple in honor of TCU.
There you go.
Just handing over Kendall. It's kind of interesting. And I don't know if it's something to be worried about or whatever, but it seems like TCU fans are just fine with letting Kendall go. It's kind of weird, kind of like how South Carolina fans were rejoicing when Mike Shula was let go. Kind of feels the same way with TCU and Briles. I don't know what that is supposed to mean. I feel like that's a completely different circumstance to what South Carolina had to deal with this year from an offensive standpoint. But I think this is about as good of a hire as the Gamecocks could have made. I'm glad they went external on this. I don't think there was much doubt that they were going to. I mean, in the back of your mind, you're like, what if Shane Beamer decides to do all this waiting, and then he goes ahead and just brings Mike Furry ahead as the full-time OC. I think that would have sent the city of Columbia into just chaos. But we're not having that happen. So, new OC, air raid offense. This is going to be a lot of fun to watch this season.
I did find it funny last night that Wes put up his post about like trying to calm everybody's nerves.
Oh, I know, because everyone's freaking out. I mean, these things take time.
They do, but so the Briles stuff really started to move, it seemed like on Friday, because we didn't even talk about it on Friday, but later on that afternoon, I saw like, hey, Kendall Briles is maybe the leader in the clubhouse now. And okay, when you hear that on Friday, you hope to have something more official by like Monday morning, and that we weren't quite there yet. Now, again, it seemed like that was going to be the case, but you know, you do wait for the Thamel tweet or the NACO's tweet or whatever to really give you confirmation to something happening. And again, yesterday, I spent all day refreshing Twitter, going to Gamecock Central, all that kind of stuff, seeing whenever that update was going to come. And it wasn't until, God, what time did you text me last night? Like 9:30 or something that, you know, this stuff finally came out. I'm like, okay, now we're getting somewhere. So, yeah, as you get later on the day yesterday, I think that panic does start to set in like, oh, no. What went wrong? What's something's going sideways here? Last minute, you're gonna have to settle for Furry or whatever it may be. But yeah, everything's cool. Looks like this is gonna go pen to paper here very, very soon, and you'll formally be able to say yes, Kendall Briles is South Carolina's new offensive coordinator.
I mean, I like it, man. I think this is going to be pretty good. We saw what he could do with a guy like with KJ Jefferson at Arkansas, who you just watch the tape. I mean, look at his size, look at his weight. I mean, this guy's kind of like Lenorse in a lot of ways, of that size and the physicality. And you just see, I was watching some highlights last night of KJ from back when he was at Arkansas, and just seeing him tuck it and run on some of those option plays. And it just reminded me so much of what Lenorse can be when he's at his best. I really think, you know, I don't know for certain, but I feel like you're bringing in Kendall Briles with the certainty that Lenorse is coming back. Like I have not seen a public announcement yet from Lenorse. I know he posted on his Instagram yesterday just some photos.
Everybody was trying to decipher what that meant.
I know. I saw a post, this ridiculous post this morning by somebody, kind of breaking down all the possibilities of what it can mean by the color he's wearing, by him taking off his helmet. Like,
yeah, because he was in all black uniform. Okay, well that's the funeral of his time at South Carolina. I don't know. We're grasping at straws here, but it is funny.
Yes. So I think, you know, I just feel like there's no way Kendall would come here without the certainty that, like, hey, is Lenorse coming back? Because we did hear Shane bring that up during the press conference after signing day of, you know, some coordinators wanted to know if they're going to be able to work with Lenorse and Nick Harbor and guys like that. I feel like you have to have some idea of whether those guys are actually going to be here or not. It's not to say that Briles just can't bring in his own quarterback. I mean, hey, Hoover. I mean, that could be, Josh Hoover could be a nice pickup to bring in. And he's also got the connection here to South Carolina because, little known fun fact, his brother, Caleb, plays on the baseball team at South Carolina. So
okay, well, boom, there you go. So, we're starting the Josh Hoover to the portal rumors right now.
Yeah. So you could potentially maybe see that. I don't know. We'll see. But I think for sure it makes you feel better. Like, hey, maybe Lenorse does come back, because I think he's still got some work to do here at South Carolina.
We'll get plenty into the Briles stuff coming up in the next segment. We'll let you hear from what he had to say when it came to explaining his offensive philosophy at a coaching clinic a couple of years ago. But first, it is 9 o'clock, and we must kick things off with a Sandstorm Pick-Me-Up.
Time to get hyped. Here's your 9 a.m. Sandstorm, sponsored by George Sink Injury Lawyers. Just call all nines.
It is time for your 9 a.m. Sandstorm Pick-Me-Up, brought to you by South Carolina's largest injury law firm, George Sink Injury Lawyers. If you've been hurt in the car or at work, call George Sink now at 803-ALL-9s. You mentioned the TCU sentiment from the fan base as he is on his way out, and it does remind you a lot of when Carolina fans are reacting to Marcus Satterfield being quote-unquote stolen by Matt Rule to go to Nebraska. Nobody here was sad to see that. It was like, hey, good luck. You'll understand in a few years. And obviously Marcus Satterfield, not even the play caller anymore. He's tight ends coach now at Nebraska, and nobody there's complaining about that because his offenses weren't doing well. I will say I dug into this a little bit, and I think a lot of people at TCU never liked him to begin with because of his associations with Baylor. Obviously, Baylor is a rival of TCU. There was also the sexual assault allegation saga that went on a decade ago at Baylor, which he was on the staff for. They did not find him to have done anything wrong in the way that obviously his dad did and stuff like that, which led to his dad being fired and essentially blackballed from FBS football. He's coaching like Division II now or something like that. So, Kendall was on that staff, but in the findings of everything that went on with that investigation, he was not found to have done anything wrong in terms of like the cover up and all that kind of stuff based on those findings. So I think a lot of the hate for Kendall Briles at TCU came from that, and just the fact that he was a Baylor guy, obviously, the rivalry there and all that kind of stuff. So maybe they didn't want to kind of give him a chance to begin with, but also it's important to note Sonny Dykes is the head coach at TCU. Sonny Dykes himself is an offensive-minded head coach. So how much of an influence over the offense did Sonny Dykes have? Now, Kendall Briles calling plays, but was that his playbook? Was that Sonny Dykes' playbook? Tough to say. So maybe some of the criticisms from the play-calling standpoint could have been more of a reflection on Sonny Dykes as opposed to Kendall Briles.
Yeah, maybe.
Just my thought.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the situation was there at TCU, but maybe it was a split. I mean, I don't know of both of them coming together to put this playbook together. I'm not sure exactly, but the head coach is always going to have the final say on what's in the playbook and what's not. So take it from that standpoint, maybe it was Sonny Dykes. I'm not sure, but the point is, look, I feel like this is definitely a step up from what you've had. I think this is, on paper, going to end up being the best coordinator that you've brought in of the four, right? Better than Satterfield, better than Loggins, for sure, and then better than Shula. I think this could be...
The Shula thing's not a high bar to clear.
No, and neither is Loggins or neither is Satterfield. Again, the bar was not set high to begin with before those guys came here. Like, Dow Loggins was regarded as one of the worst offensive coordinators in the NFL, right? I mean, I think he was by some publication as the worst offensive coordinator.
It's like Sporting News or something like that.
When he
gives out that award every year.
When he was with like the Bears, I think it was. So point is, the bar was not set very high. He did some good things at TCU. Again, working with Josh Hoover seemed to go pretty well. He has the track record at Arkansas with KJ. I think it can be similar to Shula in some ways. Of Shula worked with Cam Newton, and look how that ended up working out here. So, I think everyone's probably excited about this for the most part, I would say. But, I mean, I'm willing. I think this is going to go well, but I'm still kind of holding my breath until I see it in game because, I mean, we've seen how some of these hires have gone under Shane.
Yeah, and, we learned yesterday, by the way, Carolina's going to open up their season with Kent State on September the 5th. You'll play Towson in week number 2. We'll learn Thursday night who your first SEC opponent is in week number 3, and obviously the entire schedule and in terms of dates and who you're playing when and all that kind of stuff. It'll really be kind of week 3 and onward when we really know what this offense is. Because again, the Furry offense put up 51 points against Coastal Carolina and scored 14 against Clemson. So playing lesser opponents doesn't tell you everything. So it'll be a couple weeks into the season before we get a real grasp of what this offense is and what it's capable of. But it's the exact kind of hire we were talking about Shane needing to make, right? It's a name that people know. It's an exciting hire, and it's one that's college-specific. The Veer and Shoot is a college-specific offense, and we'll get into the dynamics of that and what Kendall Briles had to say about that offense coming up in a couple minutes. But, it's not the same, all right, here's a guy that has NFL experience, going to come in here and run a pro-style offense. This is something different, which is what Shane needed to do.
Yeah, I mean, totally. I mean, this guy has only ever been at college. So, and he's got the track record working with his dad for a bunch of years at Baylor. He's worked with Lane Kiffin. I mean, he's worked with Sonny Dykes, like you said, been at FSU, Arkansas. Like, this guy's been around college football, and
he has zero NFL experience, just to be specific.
Exactly. Like, this was what everyone had been clamoring for was, hey, Shane, go out and get a guy that has college experience of running a college offense at the college level. not necessarily NFL. That can be, you can have some NFL experience, but get a guy that's been there, done it at the college level. That's exactly what Kendall Briles has done.
So what exactly is the veer and shoot offense? And we'll let you hear what Kendall Briles had to say. His explanation of dynamics of it are coming up next as the Extra Point continues on. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry on your Tuesday here on The Game. Tyler Ed here for our friends over at Canty Foundation Specialist. It's been raining quite a bit over the course of these past couple of days, and if you've experienced a storm and have a crawl space under your home, you might have some standing water under there. And I've told you about it many times. That can create a litany of issues for your home because standing water in your crawl space can create things like mold and mildew and even invite pests like termites into your home, which you absolutely do not want. Did you also know that half the air that you breathe in your home comes from your crawl space? You don't want to be breathing in a nasty, moldy, mildewy type of air. That's our friends at Canty Foundation Specialist come in. Go online to schedule an appointment today at cantycanfix.com. And they'll go out, send a professional out to your home to evaluate crawl space needs and get them fixed so you and your family can live worry-free going forward. Again, go online to schedule an appointment today at cantycanfix.com and let our friends at Canty Foundation Specialist help you out with your foundation and crawl space needs. All right, welcome back in. It is the Extra Points. Howard Head and Jack Felcher with you on your Tuesday here on the game. Breaking down Kendall Briles, who is anticipated to become South Carolina's new offense coordinator. Again, they still have to, meet and approve the contracts and all that kind of stuff. But based on all the reporting, it is right there at the doorstep of being done, and we should have that announcement coming up here soon, and the presser at some point this week, maybe with additional hires as well. And that's something that Chris told us this morning, that he's working to get more details on the other assistant hires, running back, offensive line coach, all that kind of stuff. So it may be kind of a package of announcement, all of them together once that is going to happen. So we'll get you all that once we know all the specifics for sure. But diving in more to Kendall Briles, one thing that we complained about so much this year with Mike Shula was the offense had no identity. We didn't know what this offense was. Yeah, it's pro style, but Jack, what does pro style mean these days? That can mean 1,000 different things, right?
It can mean so many different things, honestly.
Yeah, it used to be, under center, I formation, 3 yards in a cloud of dust, a lot of play action, and now it just means offense. So being a pro-style offense doesn't really tell me exactly what you are, and Mike Shula, let's be honest, never really gave us any insight into what exactly they were trying to do outside of, we want to be balanced with run and pass. Okay, what does that mean? You want to throw the ball 50% of the time, run the ball 50% of the time, that doesn't guarantee you success, and that's part of the reason why Mike Shula's not here anymore.
Yeah, exactly. So it's good to see that South Carolina is going with something completely different, something different than anything offensively they've ran over the last 5 years. And, this veer and shoot offense that Kendall Briles has run, it's going to be a lot different, and hopefully it'll produce better results in the field.
So he was at a coaching clinic a couple years ago and really dove into the specifics of what his offense is and what they like to try and do. And one of the biggest things about his offense is playing with tempo. And here's what he had to say.
Tempo. So when we start, obviously I've been to several different places. I went to 5 schools in 5 years, so you're installing quite a bit. We always start with tempo. So whenever we start talking to the offense, we're going to be a team that's going to tempo. That's the number one thing that we're going to talk to our team about. We'll get into the details of that a little bit later.
So they're going to play a lot faster. That's one thing you can guarantee, is they're going to be up on the ball, they're going to be moving, they're going to be trying to run plays quickly, get up and down the field really fast, not try and milk the play clock all the way down to the very end. So that's going to be a difference. And not that, this year South Carolina played at a turtle's pace, but they could have been faster. They mixed in some tempo at times, but tempo is going to be a key focal point of the Kendall Briles offense.
And the thing I wonder with that, I think one of the main drawbacks to tempo is that the defense is going to be out on the field a little bit more, right? So, how does that impact everything? I'm not sure. But as long as they're scoring points, I don't think it really will matter too much. It's just, you're going to have quicker times of possession, right? And so that's going to mean the defense is going to be back out in the field a little bit quicker, especially if South Carolina went 3 and out or something. I don't know how long it would be, but it'd only probably be a couple of minutes before it's hey, defense, get back out there.
That is the balance. Now, just because you're playing fast doesn't mean you can't go on long, sustained drives where you can still go out there and have a 10 to 12 play scoring drive. So it's not like you're going to be on and off the field quickly every single time. Yes, if you're consistently going 3 and out, that is going to be a problem because your defense isn't going to have enough time to catch their breath and get reset for having to be back out there. But if you're moving the chains, continuing to go up and down the field and score in addition to that, that does end up helping out your defense quite a bit. And he mentioned diving into more details of that. This is going to be a little bit of a longer clip here, but I did want to get into what he had to say about the mechanics of tempo, because they do things really interesting, some of the specific things that you may not even think about when it comes to playing tempo and the kind of stuff that's important to those kind of offenses. Here is Kendall Briles talking about the mechanics of tempo.
Okay, mechanics. So for us, it works for us. I'm on the field. We have one signaler, okay? There's a couple different reasons why we do that. I like being on the field. I like looking the players in the eyes. I like being able to feel the game. I like seeing the DBs, the defense. I like looking at those guys because I think it gives you a better feel for that. So that's why I choose to be on the field. With that, we use one signaler. So Our quarterback and our skill guys are going to get the signals, are going to relay the call to the O-line. The O-line, every play should be the same to them. Okay, and it all starts with the center. You see that up there, but he's got to find exactly where the ball is going to be set. So we do use one signal. We don't try to do all the other stuff. If you can get our signals and you can get lined up and get that communicated to all 11 guys on the field, then we're not playing fast enough. That's on us. We play with one ball. That's what we want to do. So when we start a drive, we're going to try to play with one football, okay? And we'll talk about it, but you got to involve your managers on that as well. But when we start the drive, we need to play with one football. Obviously, there's going to be stoppage. There's going to be things that happen defensively. They're going to flop on you, okay? That's going to happen. There's going to be penalties, all that type of stuff. And you can exchange a ball, and then if it's a weather situation, you can play with a different ball. But we want to try to play with one football when we start a drive. Skilled players get the ball to the center judge. You guys know that. Center take the lead. It's imperative that your center is an intelligent guy that understands the tempo and knows how to go find where the ball is going. If it's out of bounds to the left, get to the left hash. You know where it's going to be. Find the line judge, get set, so those other guys can get set off of you. Nobody else is going to get down. The right guard ain't going to get his big ass down until you get your hand on the ball, and then the left tackle is going to, all that's going to happen after you get down, okay? So he's got to be fast, being able to get down. And then we film with a continuous tape during our scrimmages in the fall and the spring and during our games. So we'll have a continuous tape, and they're going to film everything. So we're going to coach in between the plays, and we'll have guys that will cut that up, and we'll make a highlight of that. We'll show it to them post-game, and we'll show our players, hey, you seen what you're doing with the ball right here. So you're handing it to this official, and we'll show the offense, you're handing it to this guy. Well, this guy is not very athletic, and he's going to throw the ball to that guy on the field, and that guy's going to drop the ball. And then that umpire is finally going to get the ball set, and by that time, there is no tempo. And it's all because you're just not running the ball inside. And so you're able to show those guys and then showing them doing it correctly. A guy catching the ball on the sideline, running the ball in, handing it to the ump, getting a signal and playing fast. And so all that stuff matters, and you're able to coach off of it.
And that's obviously very technical, nerdy stuff when it comes to tempo. But there's a lot of things in there that you don't really even think about, like making sure you hand the ball to the center judge so it gets spotted quicker. You can be up on the line. You're going to have that athletic center that can get up there, hustle everybody, get everybody set, and get the next play off. Do you have that guy on the roster? We'll obviously see. But I just thought it was so interesting diving into the specifics of what tempo is and how to make sure you're doing it effectively, which seemingly he's going to be trying to do all those things here at South Carolina too.
Yeah, I mean, I do wonder if you have that guy on the roster, and is Boaz Stanley your answer there? I think he has another year of eligibility. We'll see what that looks like, but yeah, I mean, look, I think there is a lot to be excited about with this offense. It's going to take, I think, a little bit of an adjustment, but that's what the spring is going to be so much about, and the summer is just getting this offense ready to handle what is going to be, I'm sure, completely different for a lot of players. I mean, if this is tempo all the time, that's definitely going to be an adjustment period, and we'll see how these guys react to that.
We'll get into some of the other things he had to say about the specifics of his offense coming up next, including things like spacing RPOs and how they utilize explosives too. That's all coming up. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Feltry on your Tuesday on the Game. All right, welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry along with you here on your Tuesday on the Game. Today is the day, by the way, for the chicken finger eating contest between Elijah Campbell and Preston Thorne. That'll be at Guthrie's at their new location at 339 Generations Way. That is off Hard Scrabble right after Elders Pond Road, next to the Valvoline, just past Firehouse Subs. So go hang out there at Guthrie's and watch Elijah and Preston eat a lot of chicken fingers. You ever been in a food competition yourself, Jack?
Not that I can remember, but I was just looking up Guthrie's. Those chicken fingers look awfully good. So
I've been there. They're pretty good.
Kind of looks like Raising Cane's a little bit, you know?
Yeah, it's pretty. It's a chicken finger specific type of place. I don't know what the limit is of who's gonna eat how many, but I think Preston and Elijah could put a lot down.
What's the over-under, you think, for...
I'll set the line at 15.5.
Okay, I like it. I think we see both of them get over 15.5.
Okay.
I think it's going to be close. I'm going to predict... Yeah, I think I am going to go Elijah probably winning this one. Probably like 17-16. I think it could be pretty close.
All right, it's going to come down to the way. It may be, I don't know if they have a time limit or whatever it may be, but yeah, see who can get that last chicken finger down to win this thing. But again, that's today, 4 until 6 at Guthrie's new location at 339 Generations Way. That is off Hard Scrabble Road, next to the Valvoline and just past Firehouse Subs. Go by, hang out with them. Also, can meet Xavier Leggett. He's going to be hanging out there as well. Of course, of the Carolina Panthers and former South Carolina Gamecock. We're unpacking the Kendall Briles offense through the words of Kendall Briles, talking about what we can expect to see when this team hits the field coming up next year with him as the play caller. Talked about tempo there in that last segment. Let's get into spacing, because that's probably the most important aspect of the Veer and Shoot offense.
Spacing, using the entire field, gives you defined pictures, makes it easier for quarterbacks. Every place I've been, I ask them about it. When you have the wide splits, it just defines the field for them. Stress conflicts players, so they can't play both. Those guys have to serve two masters. Okay, they got to carry 3 vertical and they got the B gap. So what are you going to do? So we're going to read all those guys. You guys are doing the same thing. And then create the one-on-one matchups. From a pass game standpoint, we're going to have our 4-level, 3-level quick game, drop back, play action.
So very similar, because this is all like variations of the air raid type of offense. And you see something similar, though. I think Josh Heupel's offense is technically the run and shoot at Tennessee.
Yes.
But they put receivers way out wide, all the way out to the boundary to be outside the numbers, to where you're stressing that defense, as he said, having to serve two masters, where a lot of the times in a more traditional offensive set like a pro-style offense, you can have like your nickel cornerback be assigned to the slot, where he can come in and run support very easily because the slot is lined up right off of the tackle or the tight end, so it allows you that opportunity to play both of those as needed, depending on what your defensive coverage is there. When you have the receiver split all the way out there, well, if you're that nickel corner, say for instance, and you're having to cover the slot guy, well, he's lined up all the way at the numbers, you're going to have to be out there. You can't help out and run support. So again, it forces defenses to commit to loading the box or taking guys out of the box. So it makes theoretically running the football easier.
Yeah, no, you're right. And this kind of does sound like Tennessee a little bit, except like you said, it's run and shoot at Tennessee compared to this is the Veer here at South Carolina. So, I think it's going to be, I remember watching Tennessee when they were here 3 years ago, and I remember how much of a factor that hurry up offense kind of was. I mean, South Carolina had to use wristbands that game, and I mean they didn't completely stop Tennessee's offense. I mean, Tennessee put up 38 points that day. So, I mean, we could see what these types of offenses are capable of. I just wonder, how is this going to affect the defense for South Carolina? How is this going to, impact, what type of, do you bring in players that you feel like are specifically fit for this offense? And, how does that work here?
It's going to require a lot of athleticism, especially, again, going back to what he said a moment ago about tempo, having a center that can get up on the ball really quickly, right? You just can't have somebody that's going to be slogging, taking their time, getting there. They have to be up and go, get everybody set and get on the next play. So again, you will have to evaluate your roster to see if you have the guys capable of running this type of offense. One of the big things about this offense, and you're going to hear a number in here that may make you or your eyes pop a little bit in terms of running RPOs and how big of a factor that is in what this offense is going to be.
Using mixed plays, so whenever we first started running RPO World 2010, there wasn't a term for it, so we called it mixed plays. Our guys at TCU, they're going to call them mixed plays, but that's just RPOs. We're going to be doing that 80% of the time.
80% of the time. I don't know what the specific numbers on Shula's offense were. Nowhere near 80. They mixed it in a little bit, but not nearly as much as I think many of us would have liked to have seen.
Especially with this type of quarterback.
And again, KJ Jefferson was very successful with those RPOs back at Arkansas a couple years ago. And again, you would say he's a very similar type of quarterback to what Lenore Sellers is, and they had a lot of success with it. And again, we don't know if Sellers is coming back or not, but if he does, I feel really good about him running in an offense that's going to use RPOs around 80% of the time.
Yeah, so let's go back to KJ for a second. So, I mean, this is pretty much what you can hopefully expect with him being, similar to Sellers in that, KJ over the years, 21 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 24 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 19 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. And then rushing-wise, I mean, this guy ran for over 600 yards in 21 and 22, and then 23 ran for over 400. So, I mean, you're kind of hoping that's what you can get out of Lenore's here. Doesn't have to be amazing by any means, but definitely cut down the interceptions, cut down the turnovers, and run the football more.
Well, it seems like an offense that, based on his skill set and his abilities, he'd probably be more comfortable in. Because, again, this year, it almost kind of felt like for a lot of the year he wasn't comfortable, right? He was kind of trying to do things that weren't adapted to his skill set as much. And it feels like this offense is something that he can be a little more free in, if that makes sense.
I will say one thing, and I'm looking up to see if it's any different here with Josh Hoover, but KJ did take a decent amount of sacks over his time at Arkansas. Now, that could just be an offensive line issue. I'm not sure. At TCU, sack numbers were way down with Hoover. 16 sacks in 24, 8 sacks in 23, and in 25, 18 sacks. So 42 total over the course of his career, which is what Lenore Sellers took in one season. So hopefully you can get the right offensive line coach in here too. But it seems like hopefully they'll have a better offensive line in place. Hopefully this offense will kind of cater itself with more RPOs to Sellers taking less hits.
And one thing, another thing about this veer and shoot offense is having a lot of explosive plays as well, something else that Kendall Briles talked about.
And then emphasis on explosiveness, which is a pass or a run over 10 yards. If you win turnover battle and you win the explosive plays, you win the football game. That's the bottom line. So we put a ton of emphasis on being incredibly explosive, and then obviously defensively, guys are wanting to limit those explosive plays.
This past year at TCU, they averaged 15 10-plus play 10-plus yard plays on offense this year. We would happily take that here if you can replicate those results.
Definitely would. So hopefully all of this will translate over well, and hopefully they can get the right players in, bring back the guys that you want, and make the adjustments necessary to make this thing work.
Yeah, and look, again, it's exciting. Like, these are things that generate buzz and excitement, and again, fan excitement is not what necessarily leads to success on the field, but it's something that you can be optimistic about going through this offseason. One of the things that's important, because obviously 4-8 is a disappointing year. It's a failure of a season, for being honest, and we knew this is going to be a very important hire for Coach Beamer, and again, we're still waiting for pen to go to paper and all that kind of stuff, but it does seem like this is definitely going to happen, and I don't know. I think if this is the case, he nailed it.
Yeah, I think so. And also one other thing, forgot to mention this for the South Carolina connections here. He did work with Rocket Sanders at Arkansas.
And Al Loggins.
Yes, and Al Loggins. So that's where, Rocket had his best year with over 1,400 yards rushing. So hopefully this can be the splash hire that Shane Beamer needs to further his tenure at South Carolina for years to come.
We'll get all the details of the contract and all that kind of stuff when the Board of Trustees ends up meeting on all this. I imagine they'll probably end up meeting about all the assistant hires, which will get into the latest speculation on some of those other assistants as well, including Clayton White being named on a hot board for Tennessee's defensive coordinator role. We'll dive into that coming up next as we wrap up the hour. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry with you on your Tuesday on the Game. All right, welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry along with you on your Tuesday, wrapping up the hour. Of course, a lot of the focus is on the offensive coordinator role and the one that Kendall Briles is set to take here at South Carolina. But there are other openings on this offense at running back and offensive line coach as well that are also trying to be nailed down here probably sometime this week to get all this done and move on to everything else needing to be done in the offseason. And Chris, yesterday, and he told us this morning he's working to finalize some details on some things. So hopefully he'll have some more updates for us coming up in the 11 o'clock hour when he jumps in here. But Stan Drayton seems to maybe be the leader when it comes to the running back coach search as of right now. He spent the past couple of years, or he's been at Penn State this year, but this guy that's kind of bounced around, has been at Ohio State, been in the NFL as well, very experienced running backs coach that, again, seems to kind of be the leader in the clubhouse right now for that role.
Yeah, I mean, that would be seemingly a very good hire. He's worked with a lot of guys over the years, and I think this could be something that, works out pretty well. I mean, I think he's got a ton of pretty much everywhere he's been, besides a few, like at Temple, he was the head coach, and with the Packers in the early 2000s, he was the quality control coach and worked with special teams. But everywhere else he's been, and Ohio State 1 year wide receiver, everywhere else he's been running back coach. So a lot of experience there, dating back to the early 90s.
Yeah, obviously worked with guys like Ezekiel Elliott, Carlos Hyde when he was at Ohio State. Obviously this year got to work with a couple of good running backs in Nicholas Singleton and Katron Allen up there at Penn State. So he's got to work with some really talented guys and obviously seen a lot of success when it comes to running the football. That's not, again, a finalized deal, but does seem to be the leader in the clubhouse right now to fill that role. And if you go back to the flights that were being tracked over the weekend, there was one that did go up to State College, Pennsylvania, that people
went back twice.
Went back twice to State College, Pennsylvania. Yeah. So you can draw the connections there on what that might have been.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people did think, including myself, thought it was going to be for the offensive line coach hire, but it seems like Trotwine, Phil Trotwine, the offensive line coach at Penn State, could maybe go to Florida. He has the connection there since he played at Florida, so I feel like that one's got a lot less steam right now, but definitely here with Stan Drayton, going to be interesting to see if this will end up being official.
Yeah, those things aren't quite as far along as, what is with Kendall Briles. So it's still kind of fluid at this point in time. And again, hoping Chris can provide some more insight when he comes in here at 11 o'clock. Speaking of assistants, by the way, Tennessee yesterday, or 2 days ago now, moved on from Tim Banks, their defensive coordinator, after they struggled a lot on defense this year. 92nd in scoring defense, 88th in yards allowed. So when you fire one defensive coordinator, you start looking at who the possible replacements could be. And yesterday, per Pete Nakos of On3, he ended up naming Clayton White as somebody on the hot board for the Tennessee job. Now, he did not list any specific connections to Tennessee, which is always kind of the first thing you point to there, but we look at the job Clayton White's done over the years, particularly in the 2024 season. I imagine that there are a lot of schools out there interested, and it's, I guess, not surprising that Tennessee would think to maybe have him on their short list of guys if that's the direction they wanted to go.
Yeah, why not? I mean, this guy has done such a good job at South Carolina. He's been here since day one of the Beamer era, too, for the last 5 years now. So definitely a guy that I think you got to make sure he sticks around here at South Carolina. Give him another raise if you need to, honestly. I mean, the guy has earned it with the job he's done over the years at South Carolina. I mean, a 5-time Broyles Award nominee for the nation's top assistant coach. And this would be a really tough loss if Tennessee were to get him. But there's a bunch of other names on this list. You got T-Rob from Georgia, who used to be here at South Carolina. So there's another connection there. But yeah, hopefully Clayton's not getting poached away by an SEC rival here.
Yeah, again, he played at North Carolina State, so it's not like, it's his alma mater calling him back home or something like that. I don't know what the specific connections he would have to Josh Heupel or other members on that staff. And again, there's nothing in here pointed out by Pete Nakos on this list, but it is interesting that his name, came up. And again, you've already had such a deal when it comes to the offensive coordinator hire and trying to finalize these other assistants. You really hope you don't have to be in a situation to have to replace your defensive coordinator, especially this late in the process as well.
Yeah, this would be really tough to replace Clayton. I mean, I think anything you get out there, unless it's like a top guy, I mean, it's going to be tough to top what and replicate what Clayton has done over these last 5 years. So hopefully this is not going to come to fruition here, but it's worth something keeping an eye on now.
Yeah. Again, I think we look at Clayton White as somebody that I thought if he were to leave South Carolina, it would be to take like a G5 head coaching job. And I believe his name's come up for some of those things for. Obviously, he's never taken one of those since he's been here so far. But that to me was kind of like, okay, I could see that being the next step for him. Now, again, if Tennessee backs up the Brinks truck and just throws a bunch of money at him, then okay, yeah, that's enticing too. But hopefully that situation doesn't happen.
Yeah, hopefully not. I mean, again, if it does come down to money, hopefully South Carolina is able to provide a little bit more, because you definitely want to do everything you can to keep this guy here and not even have to worry about. Because, I mean, hey, look, replacing an offensive staff is one thing, but having to – and also, what are the effects of potentially losing a Clayton White? Do other coaches follow him to – Tennessee? Do you have other guys hit the portal to join him at Tennessee? Like, there's a lot that could go wrong here for South Carolina if Clayton were to leave. Like I'm all for guys taking opportunities elsewhere, but I just think he's got a real good thing going at South Carolina right now with some really good players coming in. I think that would just be, I mean, I would say he's got a better thing going at South Carolina than he would at Tennessee, but that's just my opinion.
So we'll keep an eye on that and see if anything becomes of that. But again, Clayton White on the Tennessee hot board to be there to replace Tim Banks, and we'll keep an eye on that as time goes along. A lot of other things happening around college football, including the Heisman finalist list being announced. Who wins this weekend? We'll discuss that coming up next. To start hour number 2, it is The Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry on your Tuesday here in the game.
Are you a small business owner, a church, or other entity in need of a new HVAC system? Well, AAA Heating and Air has exciting news for you then. AAA now offers financing to qualified organizations to aid them in installing a new light commercial HVAC system. It's as easy as calling AAA for a quote or finding them online at callAAAtoday.com. Tell them Bob and Sherry sent you. At AAA Heating and Air, they've got your back. They're offering up to 12-month payment plans on repairs with no credit check. That's right. No need to worry about your credit score. As long as you're a homeowner with a valid bank account, you'll be good to go. Take control of your comfort today. Call AAA Heating and Air at 803-677-1500. Again, the number to call AAA is 803-677-1500. Call them today and breathe easy again.
give all the glory to God. We were never supposed to be in this position, but by the glory of God, the great coaches, great teammates, everyone we have around us, we were able to pull this off. Whoever thought the Hoosiers would be here, but now the Hoosiers are flipping champs. Let's go!
You guys call yourself a bunch of misfits who found the right home at Indiana. Why was this the right place for this group?
It's the right place for process-oriented. We're going day by day, whether it's the offensive line, the defense, the coaches, special teams. We're all process-oriented to one goal. That's our thing, is we're brothers. We can drag teams into the deep end because we know that we're going to stick together and we're the strongest glue ever.
Welcome back in. It is the Garnet Trust Hour presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating. Tyler Head and Jack Veltri along with you here on your Tuesday. That, of course, was the voice of Fernando Mendoza after winning the Big Ten championship on Saturday to improve Indiana to 13-0, put them as the number 1 seed in the college football playoff as they await their opponent in the Rose Bowl coming up on New Year's Day. But as we expected, he's also a Heisman finalist as we got our final 4 that are going to be on the stage coming up on Saturday, released officially yesterday based on the voting, and it includes Fernando Mendoza, Diego Pavia of Vanderbilt, Jeremiah Love of Notre Dame, and Julian Sayin of Ohio State. I think this is kind of the 4 that we kind of thought it was going to be when we talked about this yesterday, kind of that we settled if there was going to be 4 guys, it was probably going to be these 4.
By the way, is it not? God, hearing Fernando Mendoza just like, I mean, I hate to say this may be a hot take, but I think it's kind of annoying the way he's like just screaming. Like, hopefully, if he wins the Heisman Trophy, hopefully he does not sound like that. I mean, I've heard him talk on McAfee before, so he sounds a bit more normal. But yeah, those post-game interviews, a little bit cringy.
Was that? Didn't he kind of sound like Kirk Cousins a little bit?
A little, but I think Kirk is even more normal than that. Like that,
like fired up Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, fired up.
Like,
sure.
That was very much like you like that type of energy that he was bringing.
I would say so, but so yeah. I mean, I think with the Heisman here, I think they got it right with the finalists. I think ultimately it's going to come down to Diego Pavia and Mendoza, and then 3 and 4 will either be Sayin or Jeremiah Love. I think the 1 and 2, though, are definitely going to end up being Pavia, Mendoza in some sort of order or fashion.
I will say, in years past, I think it's always been very important to have been on a team that's legitimately in the national championship race when it comes to the importance of winning the Heisman Trophy. But last year, what was Colorado? They 8 and 4. Maybe they won 9 games with the bowl game, and obviously Travis Hunter won it. And so I think that's maybe not as important as it once was. And even in this mix, all 4 of these guys are on teams that were in the top 15. Like Notre Dame, obviously, controversially, was the first team left out. And then Vanderbilt was also a top 15 team that went 10-2. So there's nobody you look at here that says, well, their team just wasn't good enough, so that's going to be a knock against them. It really is 4 guys that were obviously extremely important into their team having success this year.
So, I wonder who is going to win the Heisman Trophy. Because are we both in agreement that this is going to come down to Mendoza and Pavia?
That's my thought. And look, Jeremiah Love's had a phenomenal year. He hasn't and I guess that's kind of the things. Like Notre Dame has dominated most of their games this year to where his stuff doesn't pop as much. I was like, they're beating everybody by a lot of points for the most part. Like, whatever. I feel like I've not seen, and I've watched Notre Dame play this year. I don't have any standout Jeremiah Love moments at the top of my mind right now that are being replayed over and over again, if that makes sense.
I feel like that's kind of the case for all these guys. Like, I don't really recall a Heisman. Like, Mendoza's got the throw in the end zone against Penn State. I can't really think of one for Pavia off the top of my head. Same goes for these other guys. I mean, I feel like this is probably one of the weaker Heisman races in recent memory, in my opinion. Can you imagine if Ashton Genty was doing what he did last year, this year? He'd run away with the Heisman Trophy, right? So I don't know. I think here, I look at the numbers. I see, I think ultimately, what does it come down to? Stats or impact on a team? Take these guys away from their current teams, and how different are they?
It's a mix of both. The stats are what get you there, right? Like, you can't be in the mix for the Heisman Trophy without having a certain stat line, depending on your position at quarterback, running back, receiver, whatever it may be. And all these guys certainly check the box when it comes to their respective positions being played. But I do think kind of those other elements come into play when it comes to the nitty-gritty of who's going to win this thing. And, like, Julian Sayans had a really good year. 3,329 yards, 31 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. But, like, do I think Julian Sayans is the reason why that team is winning at the clip they're winning at? I don't.
No.
Like, he's got incredible talent all around him in that offense, including perhaps the most talented wide receiver room in the country. So, and you know, he can't help that. That's great for him. But, like, I don't put as much like, okay, it's Julian Sayans as the reason why this offense is as successful as it is. Now, again, you can make the argument that, hey, Joe Burrow benefited from having elite talent around him when he won the Heisman.
Joe Burrow threw for 60 touchdowns.
He just had stupid numbers that you just could not deny, right?
No.
So a little bit different.
So, I mean, look, like, I think the numbers are a bit similar here. Like, passing-wise, like, you could put Mendoza, Sayans, and Pavia all up against each other. The one thing I think, and I feel like Pavia, I think Mendoza's the favorite to win. It's pretty close, though. I ultimately think Diego Pavia is going to win, and I'll tell you why. The numbers are really good, like almost 32,000 passing yards, or 3,200, I should say, passing yards, 27 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. The rushing numbers are what get me to think, like, okay, like, this could be serious here. Like, in total, he's got over 4,000 all-purpose yards.
Yep.
Because of the 826 yards rushing on the ground with 9 touchdowns. Like, this guy's a serious threat to run. You look at Mendoza. I mean, rushing's not everything, but Mendoza's only got 240 and 6 touchdowns. So I think Pavia's athleticism to run, too, I think helps him a lot in this case. And, I mean, I feel like a guy like this, having the year that he had, I mean, this should easily win him the Heisman Trophy, but I'm not sure if it will.
One important thing to note when it comes to voting for the Heisman Trophy, there's a lot of casual votes being cast. There are people, again, we're ingrained in college football every single day. We know the stories of these guys. We know what they're doing. We know the effect they have on their teams. But there's a lot of people that have Heisman Trophy votes that aren't as in-depth in the details of this sport, that do care about, you know, what your brand is. They do care about, you know, your cachet as a name. And Diego Pavia, out of everybody on this list, is a name that people probably know the best. And even outside of the bubble of college football, I feel like the casual sports fans probably at least heard of Diego Pavia up to this point, and the swagger and all that kind of stuff. So I do think that'll have an influence of a lot of people like, oh, I know who that guy is. Yeah, he's the flashy Vanderbilt quarterback. I'll vote for him. And again, he's already a finalist, so the numbers certainly back it up. I do think that's going to have an effect on who wins this weekend.
I mean, yeah, it's kind of inevitable. You hope that people do their due diligence. Like, if you have a Heisman Trophy vote, like, take advantage of it. Like, use it wisely. Like, make sure you're picking who you actually think is going to win, not just the big brand name. Like, look at the stats. Look at what those guys have done. Like, do your due diligence to get that thing right, because I mean, I think you can't really go wrong with any of these guys, but you know, I think there's definitely a clear, you know, like you said, like Pavia is the big name here, and maybe that lends itself well, but also Mendoza is doing a lot of good things at Indiana right now. And I think the way you have to look at it is, again, like I said before, take these guys away from their teams. Like Vanderbilt was nothing without Diego Pavia, right? You know, Indiana was really good, made the playoff without Fernando Mendoza last year, right?
Mm-hmm.
He came in this year, did his thing. Now they're the number one overall team in the country. Like, he enhanced them, I think, a bit. But Pavia came in and changed the entire complexion of Vanderbilt football in a 2-year span.
Yeah, and look, we saw, you know, Indiana made the playoff last year with Curtis Rourke. Now, Curtis Rourke was not as good as Fernando Mendoza is, but and by the way, this is just insane that we're talking about an Indiana and Vanderbilt quarterback being Heisman finalists.
It's so strange.
For one of them making it this far would have been a shock. Both of them in the same year, insanity, right? And again, if let's dial back the clock 2 years ago now, when Carolina was road grading Vanderbilt at Williams-Brice Stadium on that cold, rainy day in November. If I would have told you 2 years from now that team was going to be 10-2 with a Heisman finalist quarterback, you wouldn't have believed me.
No.
Said, no, that's Vanderbilt. They don't do those things.
No. I mean, it would have been a fantasy at best, right? I mean, it's just something that you would have never expected. But that's exactly what Pavia's done. And I think he's arguably been better this year, for sure. Rushing numbers are about the same, but passing-wise, clearly gotten a lot better this year. So I would give it to Pavia over Mendoza. That's just me. I think it's going to be awfully close. I think this will be one of the closer Heisman races. You know, it may not be the most enticing one because of, you know, no one really stood out, you know, tremendously above the rest. But, I mean, I think that makes it even more enticing of like, ooh, who's going to win? Like, it could be really either of these guys for sure.
I think Pavia is probably going to outdress everybody in this group, right?
Well, is that who you have winning?
No, and I'm just like the actual dress of like what he's going to be wearing with this thing with the drip and a chain, or I don't know, maybe he's something Johnny Manziel-esque or whatever. Like cause you saw him at the UFC fight the other day, right?
Oh yeah,
yeah. Like he's going to draw plenty of attention to himself, I'm sure, and him running around New York. What kind of trouble can he get in?
All right, now here's the real question, because you remember how back in the day, guys used to wear, when they go to New York, they would be in their team jumpsuits,
yes,
right?
Yes.
And famously last year, Ashton Genty was the only guy to wear his school jumpsuit. Everyone else was in their rich people clothing, their
they can
Gucci.
afford it now.
They can afford it. Do we see any of those guys wear team-affiliated stuff when they're in New York?
I could see Fernando Mendoza doing that. I could see him in an IU sweatsuit while everybody else is dripped out in Versace or Gucci or something like that.
Yeah, that's it's just one of the things about college football that's changed so much.
Or like Fernando Mendoza is wearing something that you like. Oh, he bought that at Kohl's, right?
yeah, just like Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, he doesn't scream frugal to me.
No. So, all right. So you have Mendoza winning. Is it?
No, I have. No? I think Pavia wins.
Okay, you have Pavia.
Yeah, I think it's going to be close. I think those are your, like in terms of final votes, I think it comes down to those two, but I think Pavia gets the nod here.
Who finishes third?
Ooh, probably Jeremiah Love.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, like, again, say it like, I feel like we don't know Julian Say it. Great player.
No, great player, but again, he's got all those weapons at Ohio State.
Yeah, he's not even the biggest name on his own team.
No.
Right?
Yeah, definitely not.
So yeah, we'll see what happens on Saturday night. We now have the college football playoff field set. Who are the contenders and who are the pretenders? We'll get into that coming up next. It is the Extra Point. No, it's the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. The Garnet Trust Hour presented by Krantz Queen. I'll get the name right at some point. Tyler Ed and Jack Feltry on your Tuesday on the Game.
If you are looking for a reliable local roofing company to help your home or business with your roofing needs, check out our friends at Classic Roofing. Joe Reeder, Max Sawyer, our guys, friends of the program here. They can help you take good care of your roof. That can be challenging, but you don't have to do it alone. They have years of expertise under their hats. Their local company, again, their families live right here in the Midlands, and the guys at Classic Roofing are GAF certified roofers. Only about 7% of roofers nationwide even have that certification. They can do inspections, installations, replacements, and repairs on your roof. You can visualize your new roof and what it would look like at classicroofingsc.com. You can check out their reviews and get a free estimate there. classicroofingsc.com, or give them a call, 803-590-7870. That's the reliable roofers over at Classic Roofing.
welcome back in. It is the Garnet Trust Hour, presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating. Tyler Head and Jack Belcher with you here on your Tuesday on the game. Now we get kind of the lull when it comes to the college football calendar in terms of like games being played. Yes, you got Army-Navy this weekend, and believe it or not, there's actually some bowl games this weekend.
Yes, the LA Bowl.
The bucked up LA Bowl. If you're not up to date on the new
Has that name
branding,
hasn't it undergone a million different name changes? It was the Jimmy Kimmel LA Bowl. Wasn't it didn't Gronk have a sponsorship last year?
Last year it was the LA Bowl hosted by Gronk.
Yeah.
Because he was like on the sidelines or whatever during the TV coverage. But yes, Bucked Up, which is an energy drink, is in its first year sponsoring the LA Bowl.
Okay.
So, and I love bowl sponsors and how weird they get sometimes. We may play a game with that coming up a little bit later on in the week. But we have a couple games this weekend. You got to wait a week and a half to get into the actual real games that matter again, which are the college football playoff games. We got the field set on Sunday. Have first-round games coming up December 19th and December 20th. Where's your, excitement level for this edition of the 12-team playoff?
I think, last year told us the first round was kind of a dud in that most of those games were blowouts. Don't let the Clemson-Texas game fool you. I mean, that game got close, but Texas eventually pulled away. That was probably the best game, I would say, of the first round, but the others were SMU, Penn State, Tennessee, Ohio State. I mean, Tennessee, Ohio State should have been the best game, but it ended up being a blowout. So I'm nervous that that's going to be the case again this year, where you have Alabama, Oklahoma will be close. Like that should be a good game. But Oregon and JMU, there's a reason that game's a multi-touchdown on like JMU's 21.5 point underdog in that game.
Yep.
Tulane's like a 16.5 point underdog against Ole Miss. I'm nervous that those games are going to be duds. But then, Miami and Texas A&M at noon. I hate that game's at noon. Hate that game is not at 3:30 or the night game.
It's the one game that's not going to compete with the NFL that day.
That's true.
So they specifically made it where the two games that are expected to be one-sided, Ole Miss, Tulane, Oregon, JMU, are the games running juxtaposed to the NFL games that day because they know they're not going to win that ratings battle.
And to be fair, putting Oregon at night is 4:30 West Coast time.
Yes.
So it makes sense that because everyone's like, oh, why not put Oregon, JMU at noon? Well, it'd be a 9 o'clock a.m. start out there in Eugene. So no, but I'm excited. I am. I'll watch it. I think it's gonna be a lot of fun. I will say though, when you bring up the whole NFL thing,
yep.
By the time it gets to Tulane, Ole Miss, and then JMU, Oregon again, I'm hoping those games are close. I'm hoping they're entertaining, but I will be ready to flip the channel to the NFL once those games get out of hand.
So out of the 12 teams that are in this college football playoff, how many of them do we think actually have a shot to win the entire thing?
So all the top 4 seeds, I think the jury for me is still out a little bit on Texas Tech.
Okay.
But I think 1 through 3, all of them have the best chance for sure. You get into the 5 through 12, I don't know. I honestly don't see any of them. I think this is ultimately going to come down to those top 3 seeds, and those teams will be fighting for a national championship. I don't know who from this field could potentially go on a run. I think there's a few question marks about each of them, like Oklahoma. What's this offense going to do, right? Defense can win championships, but you got to score points to win, right? Alabama's coming off the dreadful performance against Georgia. Texas A&M kind of stumbled a little bit towards the end of the year. Miami, who knows with them, right? I mean, it's like all these teams. Ole Miss is a new head coach. Tulane, they got blown out by Ole Miss the first time. JMU is kind of lucky to be in the field right now because Virginia fumbled the bag. And then Oregon. Oregon probably has the best chance of the first-round teams. But Oregon's thing has always been they can never seemingly get the job done. You go back 15 years ago, they played Auburn in the national championship. Didn't win that game. 2014, blowout of Florida State. but got blown out by Ohio State in the national championship. And then even going back to last year, I mean, got smacked by Ohio State at the Rose Bowl. So I think top 3 seeds, Indiana, Ohio State, Georgia, have the best chance here.
Yeah, and I don't think anybody's going to argue with you on that point. Texas Tech, because I'm trying to think. Let me go back and look at their schedule, because I don't think they played any high quality out of conference.
They're a good team
this year,
but
yeah,
I don't know.
They played Arkansas, Pine Bluff, Kent State, and Oregon State. So what we know about Texas Tech is purely through the lens of the Big 12, and it's so hard to compare conferences. Yeah, Texas Tech, and what I'm assuming is going to be a matchup with Oregon in the second round. Texas Tech could win that game 41-31, or they could get obliterated by Oregon. I don't really know which way that's going to go. So I can't sit here with the same confidence and say that I feel the same way about them the way that I do the top 3 seeds ahead of them. Not saying it can't happen, but I just don't know enough as of right now. I agree with you. I think Oregon is a team that, again, their only loss this year was the one to Indiana. That was at home. I would be interested to see how Dan Lanning does in a second matchup against Kurt Signetti, because I do think Dan Lanning is one of those guys that can adapt seeing a team a second time. Now, yeah, I know they got blown out by Ohio State last year, so he's got to get over that. But I think Oregon's capable. A&M
can be really good.
They can.
Let's just say they have all the weapons offensively to make this machine go. And I think they're very good defensively. But, again, I saw that team play against South Carolina. If that team from the first half and the one from the Texas game shows up here next week on next Saturday at noon against Miami, I think they're going to get beat. I mean, I think that's as simple as that. But if they're the team that we all know they can be, they can go as far as anybody here.
I think Ole Miss is capable. Again, how much does Lane Kiffin moving on and Pete Golding taking over as a head coach for the first time ever factor in? We don't know, and that's a reason why they didn't drop in the standings, because we have no data to tell us one way or the other of what they're going to be. So, and I don't think they should have a problem with Tulane. Again, they beat them by 5 touchdowns earlier on this year, but they almost beat Georgia. They scored at nonstop until the fourth quarter in that game. So they're a team that's capable of putting up a fight against them. I feel like you can say the same thing about them potentially playing in Ohio State there in the semifinals. I think they do have the talent and the ability to go on a run through this thing. A&M is kind of a maybe for me right now. Again, I can't kind of get out of my head what I saw them do against Texas, and I don't think Texas is all that an elite of a team. And again, you get no mulligan once you get into the playoff. Oklahoma, their offense just doesn't do enough for me. Great defense.
But their defense, I will say this, their defense can carry them. I think the defense alone, I think, can get them past Alabama, potentially past Indiana as well. Indiana's also got a very good defense, but I think it's really going to come down to, okay, what is John Mateer going to do? Because this team, when Mateer was at his best this year, they were so good. Mateer was on his way to winning the Heisman Trophy earlier on the season. Then the hand injury happened, and that's kind of derailed him a bit. He hasn't looked like the same quarterback really at all. But if he's able to just figure it out, I don't know how, if he's able to figure something out offensively, that's going to help tremendously, because that defense can go up against anyone, I think.
Alabama, look, you can never deny Alabama, and there were times this year when we thought they were the best team in the country. They've not played their best football as of late, and I think you saw that perfectly on Saturday in the SEC championship game against Georgia. What does a couple weeks off do for them? Now, again, they're going to have to go on the road in the first round and maybe play in the snow in Norman, Oklahoma, so that's going to be a tough challenge. But, with the talent they have on their team, I can never say, no, they don't have a chance to win the entire thing.
No, they always do. They will always have a chance. But this is a different dynamic than Nick Saban, where you expect Alabama to win. And also, let's not forget, Alabama lost to Oklahoma earlier this year. And I know last year doesn't have much to do with right now, but Alabama did go to Norman last year and got smoked. So I wonder, I don't know, but I think of all the teams in this first round field here, I would probably feel the best about Oregon here going on a bit of a run, but we'll see what happens.
Miami, yes, no?
I think they can beat Texas A&M. I just think going to Kyle Field is going to be really, really tough. If you had to ask me who wins that game, I'm probably going A&M, but We'll see.
Now, imagine not too many people outside of, James Madison and Tulane's fan base are going to think they're going to have much of a shot in this thing. Again, Tulane is a 17.5-point dog, and James Madison's a 21.5-point dog in the first-round matchups.
I'm just hoping those games are competitive. Like, for the group of five's sake, they better be competitive, because otherwise, when we get to 16 eventually here, there are going to probably be some real discussions of, okay, like, are we going 16 best teams, or are we still giving the group of five a chance at the dance here?
Off of that, and I want to get into this coming up next, the way we talk about underdogs in college football is much different than all the other college sports. Well, why is that? We'll examine that coming up next. It is the Extra Point. Nope, it's the Garnet Trust Hour presented by Krantz Schooling and Heating. It's our head and Jack Feltry on your Tuesday on the Game.
All right, folks, let me tell you about our friends over at Integrated Media. The beautiful thing about it is you can take your dreams for that home, make it a smart home, dreams for your man cave, dreams for the living room, and they can take whatever you're thinking about and then just turn it into a reality. You can hit them up today, integratedmediainc.com, or give them a phone call. It is 803-948-8327. Their services include basically anything to do with your TV, your surround sound, your smart home services, or securities and cameras. If you work from home, for me, it was all about my home office. Didn't really have a great connection to the Wi-Fi. Needed hardwired internet, so they came in. They ran Ethernet throughout the home into my office, into my wife's office, and made sure we had a great connection there. And then we went a step further with whole home Wi-Fi. They can also hang TVs. They can hide the wires for you, and they can go all in on that man cave too. Hit them up today. Again, for more information, integratedmediainc.com.
All right, welcome back, and it is the Garner Chest Hour presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating. Tyler Head and Jack Belcher along with you here on your Tuesday on the Game. Again, a reminder, today from 4 until 6, Elijah Campbell and Preston Thorne going to be out at the brand new Guthrie's location at 339 Generations Way. That is just off Hardscrabble Road after Elders Pond, and it is just past the Firehouse Subs next to Valvoline. They'll be participating in a chicken finger eating contest. You also come and meet Xavier Leggett as well, as he'll be out there hanging out, signing some autographs and all that kind of stuff, and see who the champion chicken finger eater of the early game is. Again, our bets are on Elijah. I think Elijah can pick up this victory. I believe in him.
I think he can. So what times is that? 3?
From 4 until 6.
4 until 6.
Out the, I believe that's that firehouse we went to not that long ago. One of the new locations they had.
Terry and Jay both out today, or what's the?
Well, it's not something we're doing on the show. So they're just going to be out at that location doing this event.
Okay.
It's not tied in with the post-game show.
I was about to say.
They're just going to be hanging out.
All right, cool.
So not a specific radio element to it. You can just go out, hang out
Just
with Elijah and Preston and watch them eat a lot of chicken fingers, apparently.
Yeah, I may have to head out there. That'd be pretty fun to watch.
We're gonna have to work a deal to get us some kind of food eating competition.
I think that'd be fun.
It'd be fun for me.
I think it'd be a lot of fun.
You ever done a food eating competition?
I wish. I would love to. So if anyone out there has the power to make that happen for us here, reach out, give us a call.
I did a Krispy Kreme competition one time.
That would be fun.
For a dozen donuts, and I did not win. That was a lot of sugar, but it was good.
Can Firehouse get that set up for us?
Hey, listen, I can put down some Firehouse subs.
Yes.
You want to have a sub eating competition? I'm right there with you, man.
We need to bring back the Last Dab pickle.
Ooh,
remember that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Whoever can eat more of those wins. I don't know if that's a good one, but
you didn't accept that one quite as well.
I thought it was all right. It was fine at first, and then it just ticked up exponentially, and it's like, man, that thing was hot.
It was pretty spicy. I kept my composure, but the heat was there. We're talking about the college football playoff. As I just mentioned, James Madison 3-touchdown underdog, Tulane almost 3-touchdown underdog for their respective games against Oregon and Tulane. And I think it's so interesting, especially now that we've gotten in the second year of the 12-team playoff, and we have 2 group of 5 teams in there that nobody believes really have a legitimate shot at winning the national championship. I think it's so interesting. Why do we hate underdogs in college football postseasons compared to the other college sports?
No, we only have a little bit of a sample size of these teams because the playoff has only been a 12-team for 1 year. But we also have seen a group of 5 teams in the playoff before. Like Boise was in it last year. I think it made sense. Here's the thing: would Boise have been killed in the first round of the playoff if the format was the way it was this year for last year, right? So where instead of Boise being the 3 seed and having a first round bye and playing the Fiesta Bowl, they would have had to travel to, I don't know, let's say they would have had to go to Penn State. Mm-hmm. Would Boise State have stood a chance in that game?
Well, I mean, they did play Penn State in the Fiesta Bowl, and they hung in there with them for a while before Penn State kind of pulled away. So I wouldn't say they had no chance, but Penn State was definitely the better, more talented team, and they won that game. And I think Boise's kind of one of those things. They've been a brand in the G5 for so long. I think we look at them differently.
They're going to be in the Pac-12 next year.
Yeah, well, that's still going to be a G6 conference, though.
But still, I mean, they're on their own level, I think, in terms. I mean, they just won the Mountain West again.
So I guess the question is, do you want to see James Madison Tulane win? I know the odds are stacked against them, but would you want them to advance into the second round watching the playoff?
No, I don't think that would be good. I don't like the idea of the G5 being in anyway, because we've seen this happen before. Again, I brought the reference the other day of Cincinnati when they made the playoff in the 4 team and the Cotton Bowl and got smoked by Alabama.
Yep.
We've seen a few instances, maybe not in the playoff necessarily, but UCF a few years ago went toe-to-toe and beat Auburn and, hung in there with LSU. So, I mean, it can be done, but I don't know, man. I mean, this is different. These teams are going on the road, first off, and we saw Tulane get smoked by Ole Miss earlier this year, 45-10. So how much different will this be? I don't know. We'll see. I would expect. I think the bigger question is, are these teams going to cover? I think that's the main thing. Are Oregon and Ole Miss going to cover the spread? And I think that'll much more be the argument here is, can they cover as opposed to, are they going to lose this game?
Yeah, and I think when you look at what the sport of football is, look, on any given day, upsets can happen, right? And James Madison can go into Autzen, and Oregon can turn the ball over 5 times, and there can be some crazy things happening on special teams. It can have James Madison winning that game, but I think there's not an air of believability that either one of these teams, James Madison or Tulane, can go on a run and legitimately win the national championship, as opposed to other sports. We've seen plenty of Cinderellas in college basketball get into the Elite Eight, get into the Final Four, and go on these crazy runs. Now, nobody specifically, is winning the national championship, so to speak, but they're coming close. Coastal Carolina just played for the College World Series title this past year. They've won it in the past. There is a lot more believability in these other sports that smaller teams from smaller conferences can legitimately get in and win these things. And football, it's just not there.
Football is so different compared to these other sports. Like, you see it every year in March Madness with college basketball all the time. Like, on the men's side specifically. The women's side, you'll get a few upsets, but it's not as typically the better team in women's will win. But with men, I mean, you never know. Like, we've seen the lowest rated 16 seed in UMBC beat the highest top overall seed in Virginia in the NCAA tournament before. So it was like crazy things have happened. In college baseball, you bring it up. That can also be anyone's game. Like, those sports are so different. Football is in a league of its own, though, because the talent level is just night and day. Like, no disrespect to those G5 schools, but I don't see it happening. Like, I think eventually we are going to get to a point. I wonder if it'll be reflected in the TV ratings too, because I think that also has a big role in who gets in and who doesn't. Of, okay, like, the automatic bids make sense for these G5 teams. Like, they have to be in, but ultimately, when we get to the point where we do eventually probably have a 16-team playoff, are we going to see the G5 schools still included in these games?
I don't know if you have the guarantee anymore. Now, again, like, Cincinnati made the college football playoff by being the 4th ranked team, right? There was no automatic bid. They had to legitimately be high enough ranked to make it in. So that possibility is always going to exist for a G5 team. Like, hey, and let's just say we go to 16. Once you get all the auto bids out of the way for conference champions, you can say, okay, if you're ranked inside the top 16, you're going to have a good shot at making it in. Like, that possibility is always going to exist. I don't know if these other conferences are going to continue to throw them the bone of saying, hey, we'll give you a guaranteed spot every single year, because, I mean, last year we obviously saw, and it was a different case because Boise State ended up getting a bye, which is why we had the straight seeding this year, but they lose to Penn State. Again, these 2 games we have this year could get really, really ugly. And you're right about the ratings, because at the end of the day, it's all about TV money and revenue and all that kind of stuff. And if the ratings are bad for these 2 games, especially if they teeter on blowouts, with the decision of what the future is coming next month, potentially, I could see a pathway where, like, yeah, we're not going to guarantee you anything. If you're high enough ranked, sure, but that's your only way in.
It's the way it should be, right? I like the way the 4 team did it, because then you don't have to worry. You get the best teams in. Now, some of those years you can debate if some team deserved to be in or not, but I think when it comes down to it, I think that's the way to go compared to, we got to include everybody, right? We got to include the G5. We got to have these conference champions in, because ultimately you get games like what you got last year, right? Like, I just think it should be much more about getting the best teams in compared to, let's check off all the boxes of making sure this team gets in and this conference has representation. Like, not everyone needs representation. Like, the playoff should be about getting the best teams in. And if you win your conference, great. And you're one of the top teams, great. Awesome. But I think ultimately that's got to be what it's about.
Real quick, would you want to see a G5 standalone playoff?
I've seen that, and I think that would be awesome. I like the way the FCS does it. It's very entertaining. Give me something along those same lines for the G5. And look, if a G5 school is one of the top teams in the country, like Boise was last year, and gets into the field for the Power Four here, no problem. But ultimately, I want to see the best teams in compared to let's make sure the G5 gets in when maybe they're not as deserving.
We'll hit the oddities of college football to wrap up the hour. Up next, Garner Trust Hour here on your Tuesday on the Game. All right, welcome back in. Garnet Trust Hour presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating. Tyler Head and Jack Belcher wrapping up the hour here on your Tuesday on the Game, as do every Tuesday. Time to look at the oddities of college football, and obviously not the same volume of games going on this weekend, so not quite as many things to pick from. But like Jack, I think perhaps the biggest oddity is Duke at 7-5 won the ACC. Like, how insane is that? Come on now.
It is wild. Like, this is the dream scenario that I think a lot of us had for. If you want chaos, this is exactly what you could have hoped for. And what a good game it was, honestly. I mean, Duke looked like it was going to pull away and win convincingly in the final minutes, but Virginia came back, tied the game, sends it to overtime. Then Duke scores first, scores a touchdown, and then Virginia goes out there and first play, runs a trick play, gets picked off. So just a crazy game. And, you know, I said it yesterday. I hate to see Duke get sent to El Paso for the Sun Bowl as the ACC champ. You would think they would get sent to a better bowl game, but ultimately that's where they're heading. But, yeah, what a crazy story. An 8-5 Duke team wins the ACC.
I think the ACC is going to re-examine its tiebreakers this offseason because there was like a 5-way tie for second. Because, again, Virginia was the outright number one. Like, 5-way tie for second. There was a lot of teams that didn't have common opponents between each other. Duke got in on, like, the fifth criteria of this thing. Much like the SEC has changed its criteria for women's basketball, where Greg Sankey's not going to have to flip a coin on national television anymore. Hopefully not. I think the ACC is going to really re-examine this in the offseason.
They should. I mean, I think you got to almost. I mean, it's kind of crazy that Duke was able to get it. Now, again, they lost a bunch of games in the non-con, but still, the fact that they got there and won, I mean, it's pretty crazy to think about.
Speaking of shocking, North Dakota State rarely loses ever. And once again, they were the number one seed in the FCS playoffs this weekend, playing host to the Illinois State Redbirds in the Fargo Dome. It looked like when North Dakota State was up 28-14 in the fourth quarter, they had the game in hand. However, Illinois State would mount a comeback, and despite Tommy Rittenhouse, their quarterback, throwing 5 interceptions, Illinois State, 3 touchdown underdogs, take down the Bison of NDSU.
Absolutely nuts. I mean, they were down 28-14 in the fourth quarter and still won this game, even with the 5 interceptions as well. I mean, where does this rank in terms of upsets? Because I think this is probably one of the bigger ones here.
Now, Illinois State is a good program.
They are, but North Dakota State...
North Dakota State's the standard.
They are the standard in the FCS.
Oh, that's up there, especially in the Fargo Dome. They don't lose there a lot.
No.
And specifically not in, I think this is the quarterfinals.
This is the second round, yeah.
Second round of their playoffs. So, yeah, that one's up there. Anytime NDSU loses, it's a big deal because it just doesn't happen a lot. They've been known as the Alabama of FCS for a reason.
Yeah, crazy to think about.
Speaking of the FCS playoffs, the number 2 seed Montana State took care of Dante Reno's Yale Bulldogs on Saturday, 21-13. After the game, though, Montana State running back Julius Davis was seen having a verbal altercation with head coach Brent Vigen. We still don't know the details of this, but I really thought, if you're watching the video of this, I thought they were going to come to blows at some point, as apparently Davis was talking to a former teammate of him from Wisconsin that's now at Yale, and for whatever reason, when the coach tried to separate them, Davis lost his mind.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on here, but this guy, I don't know. I mean, Montana State's going on to the next round, but I can imagine this guy would be benched, hopefully. I mean, how often do you see that where a player's freaking out on a coach?
Yeah, now Brent Vigen did say there's no repercussions from this yesterday in his presser, so I don't know. That was very bizarre. And lastly, who says you can't go home? James Franklin is taking over as the head coach at Virginia Tech, and he's bringing in his defensive coordinator, Brent Pry, who I guess he doesn't have to sell his house now.
No,
his kids can keep going to the same school.
I mean, I think that's just so funny. I mean, how often do you ever see that happen where the coach that gets fired doesn't find a job yet, and then he gets rehired at the same school, albeit in a different role?
Yeah, to go from one job to the next like that, I've never seen that before. Now, Zach Arnett is being hired back at Mississippi State by Jeff Lebby's the DC, the role that he played under Mike Leach. Of course, when Leach passed away, he took over as head coach back in 2023. Lasted one season, they fired him. So he's coming back there. But yes, to go from being the head coach, being fired, and then 3 months later being rehired as the defensive coordinator, definitely a first.
Yeah, very crazy. And then the same thing happened kind of to some extent at Mississippi State, where Zach Arnett, who he was the coach that took over after Leach died, right?
Because he was his DC then.
Yes. So now he's back at Mississippi State as the defensive coordinator as well.
But there's still a gap there.
There's a
for
gap,
a couple of years.
but it's like still.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Brett Pry doesn't have moved out of Blacksburg now.
Yeah.
So there's that.
Hopefully Arnett didn't have to sell his house. So we'll see.
Coming up next, Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs on your Tuesday here on The Game.
Folks, let us tell you about our friends over at Krantz Cooling. Since 1983, that's 2Ks, KrantzCooling.com. You rely on your home's air conditioning and heating systems to keep your temperatures throughout your house comfortable year-round. To keep those systems in working order, you want a professional, reliable, full-service contractor. Krantz is serving homeowners just like you in the Columbia area by delivering quality workmanship, products, positive results, safety, uncompromising integrity, as well as any of the services you need for your HVAC systems. Of course, that includes air conditioner, heating, preventative maintenance, ductless AC, indoor air quality, or if you are a business owner as well, hit up our friends at Krantz for your commercial HVAC services. How do you do that? Phone number 803-672-3224. Again, that's 803-672-3224. Or head on over to KrantzCooling.com.
11 o'clock on your Tuesday morning. Welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler Head, Chris Clark along with you once again here on this Tuesday. I think Wes Mitchell's going to pop in at some point this week. He's missing all the fun. There's nothing more fun than coaching and coordinator searches. So he's going to come in and miss all the excitement that we're having this week.
He's keeping up, trust me. But I've been talking. Wes is definitely trying to balance, as anybody who's been in this business, who's had a baby or children, trying to balance being part of things and doing that, and kind of like, hey, I'm taking some time off during a coaching search. Like, that's hard to do.
Yeah,
and he's balancing it well, but it is fun, man. Like, somebody asked me the other day on our forum, they're like, What are you most ready for it to be over, the Landon Duckworth saga or the offensive coordinator search? I'm like, at this point, offensive coordinator search. But look, like, honestly, these things are fun. Like, are there some parts where you're, maybe a little irritated for various reasons at times? Sure. But, I mean, we get to talk about sports and, like, follow this stuff for a living, It's actually a lot of fun. So I'm good with it.
Have you ever worked at a job that you absolutely hated before doing what you're doing now?
Not in a lengthy period of time. There was a time where I think I was in high school, and I went and worked for a temp agency. And so they just basically, hey, we'll find something for you to do for, a few days a week.
Sure.
And one of them was working on a construction site. Oof. And so I just had the foreman walking around, sweep this up, or he gave me a nail gun. And I'm like, dude, you want me to build this? It was like building a stage in a church.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know. I absolutely hated that. The foreman he was not the nicest guy, but
yeah,
I've liked everything else.
Yeah. The job that I worked prior to this, I did not enjoy. And anytime I'm frustrated by things going on with this, I just kind of mentally put myself back in there. In fact, it's funny because we're going to talk about Kendall Briles, and obviously he was the offensive coordinator for Arkansas the last time that Carolina played them back in 2022. And when that game, I heard Elijah and Preston talking about it this morning, and I mentally took myself back to the job that I was working out here, being in essentially a call center where that game was on the TV, but I could not pay attention to it because I was busy doing what the job was, and I saw Arkansas running up the score and all that kind of stuff, but I couldn't have told you what was happening in the game because I couldn't sit there and pay actual close attention to it. So it's those kind of moments I'm like, yeah, glad to be doing what I'm doing now.
Yeah, no doubt. And, man, I remember that game well. I was actually at that game. The SEC schedule, Tyler, will be released publicly. We mentioned this yesterday, Thursday night, correct, on SEC Network?
Correct.
Check that out. There is we already know, we don't know the date publicly, but there's a trip to Arkansas on the docket. I recommend any Gamecock fan, if you haven't been to Arkansas, check it out. Very underrated place, in my opinion. Definitely recommend flying. I drove there last time.
Ooh, how far of a drive is that?
About 15 hours, something like that.
Now, did you not have the option to fly?
We had the option.
Okay. Just wanted to go the scenic route?
Yeah. Oh, it was scenic. It was actually really pretty. But you get to Memphis and you're like, all right, 8 more hours or 5 more, whatever. I don't know, like 5 more hours, something like that. It was a lot. But I was at that game, and a guy named Rocket Sanders, he had a big game. KJ Jefferson, Kendall Briles calling plays. And, I think that was a game where a lot of, Kendall Briles has come up. Tyler, you've seen it since you've been here.
Yep.
Every time there's an offensive coordinator opening, or even when there's not, people are like, hey, Kendall Briles, that's the kind of guy we need to go get. And it looks like South Carolina is quite close to making that a reality.
Well, when Loggins got hired 3 years ago, you hired the wrong guy from Arkansas. Get the play caller, not the tight ends coach. And again, like, Briles is a name, right? It's a brand, it's a name, and yes, his father is now disgraced in most college football realms for what went down at Baylor, but still, from like a knowledge standpoint, Briles is kind of similar to like Shanahan in the NFL. Like, it's a name they're good at offense, that's what their coaching style is built on, and it generates a lot of buzz and excitement to have him coming in here. So, all right, we got to be specific about where we're at in this thing, because last night at 9:30 or whatever, Pete Thamel, Nakos, the national people starts tweeting, hey, Carolina is getting close to finalizing the deal with Kendall Briles. Nothing's been signed yet. Nothing's official yet. As of 11:05 this morning, where are we in this whole process?
Yeah, Thamel's report last night, we spent a lot of time actually talking about this late last night, finalizing a hire. So what does that mean? That can take so many forms, and what we were told was a very similar version of that, which is, and again, this was as of last night, the deal's not done, but Shane Beamer obviously wants Kendall Briles. It's now become evident that Kendall Briles wants to be in Columbia as the Gamecocks offensive coordinator. There were still some, to use the word final is probably good. There are some final things to take care of, but the full expectation from what I've gathered is that it'll get done. Now, you got to keep in mind, what are those things? Well, you're finalizing everything from the finances, the length of the contract, how are you going to structure the rest of the staff, because South Carolina obviously has 2 additional openings, offensive line coach, running backs coach. You got to, South Carolina very much wants to get all those hires done, if not at the same time, on a very, very similar timeline. I don't expect that Kendall Briles is going to get finalized and then it's going to be another week or 2 on the other assistants. I think they will happen either at the same time or they will happen, kind of in conjunction with each other. So figuring out those things. From there, the process is once there's basically a term sheet, then you get a full contract. That contract is going to then be approved by the University of South Carolina's Board of Trustees. And Tyler, as of now, the rule basically, or the law to be more specific, is that the board has to give 24 hours notice to the public about a board meeting. We have not gotten that notification yet. That is the final step in the process, but the hire can still be, reported, announced, everything like that, even before board approval. That's kind of the final step. So to give some context, and we're talking about finalizing, it's really just about locking down all the terms and structure of a deal. So maybe since last night it's been done and we haven't quite gotten it. I did hear earlier that South Carolina, in the course of working on not just Kendall Briles' deal, but all 3, they're getting close and hope that stuff is finalized today. Again, it'll then have to be approved by the board.
Well, and again, I've been refreshing my email to see if Colin sent us, hey, Board of Trustees meeting coming up tomorrow to approve athletic contracts, which is essentially what that means. And it makes sense. If you're going to make these hires all close together, you may as well just have one meeting, get them all done. You can formally announce it and introduce everybody to presser Thursday or something along those lines. Not saying that's what the exact timeline is going to be, but that kind of seems to be the way this is trending. Again, Thamel, Nakos, those guys don't put this stuff out there unless it's right there at the doorstep of being done. You just got to, again, cross the I's, dot the T's, sign on the dotted line, and agree to terms and all that kind of stuff, which I'm going to be very interested to see what the salary is, because I would imagine, especially considering the fact that he's been at TCU for a couple of years, he's from Texas, like you probably had to pay him a hefty sum to want to come here and be the offensive coordinator, where I'm interested to see where he ranks in terms of like highest paid assistants once the details of that contract come out.
Yeah, I'm going off, Tyler, of some reporting. It's a private school, at TCU, but apparently in 2023, let's see where he was at. This is not great radio to do this on the fly, but Jeremiah Donati is actually on this list because he was the TCU athletics director. But Kendall Briles made about 1.4, 1.5, and that was a couple years ago. So, maybe the contract is scaled, had an automatic scale in it. Maybe it didn't. But you would imagine that, I honestly have not heard terms, but I would assume there's a good chance that he gets a raise to come to South Carolina. So is this a $2 million coordinator? That's very possible. We've seen that here at South Carolina. Might be a $2 million coordinator. It's definitely, I would say almost definitely going to be in the high 1 point something million, but might get up into the 2s as well. So I would assume, it'll be a multi-year deal. That's become pretty much standard across the sport for coordinators. South Carolina has done that for their coordinators as of late. The last coordinator deal, I think, was a 3-year deal. So probably a multi-year deal. and a really nice salary. I would agree.
I don't anticipate he's going to come here for less than what he was making at TCU. There's
You wouldn't think so,
right, because
Wouldn't
he
think so.
doesn't have specific ties to Beam or the state of South Carolina. He's from Texas. Again, his roots are in the Big 12, so it makes sense for him to be there. It's going to take a lot to get him to come away from that. So, yeah, we'll get all the finalized details of that contract and everything once the Board of Trustees meets on that, as well as the other assistant hires when it comes to running backs coach and offensive line coach. And we'll get into some of the leaders in the clubhouse for that coming up in a minute. But I just going off the reaction of what I've seen in our listening audience, text line, live stream, obviously Twitter, message boards, and all that kind of stuff. People are excited. Like, this is something that legitimately has people excited with Kendall Briles coming in here as your offense coordinator, which, again, that was a big part of this process that we talked about is like, hey, get somebody that people can be fired up about, not, a guy that's flamed out in the NFL that's going to come in here and run the same thing that everybody else has been running the past handful of years.
Well, it's definitely different, right? I mean, and that is what we had heard and passed along is that Shane Beamer for this hire, obviously a critical hire. Everybody knows that. And he's talked about these very candidly publicly, a lot of trends from the past several years that even when South Carolina was having some success, and it certainly has not been good enough overall, they've struggled in several areas. So, negative plays, tackles for loss, sacks allowed. They've perennially been at the bottom of the country in sacks allowed in the conference and nationally, having periods where you can't move the ball and score points, not being able to run the football effectively, except for the year where, coincidentally, they had Rocket Sanders in 2024 last season. So there have been a lot of issues, and so you would expect, hey, for a hire like this, Shane Beamer's going to go in a different type of direction, and that's certainly what he's done with Briles. If you're looking for a very, quote unquote, just kind of a made up word, but a college-y offense, that's what you have in Kendall Briles. He's never coached in the NFL. He's been a college guy all the way. There's a true system at play that they're going to run. It's a system, though, that's adaptable, Tyler. He's had, there have been years when they were at Baylor, they were one of the best teams in the country at running the football. At TCU, they've been much more of a pass-first team. So it is a system that, yes, it's a true system, but it's also adaptable to your personnel. And it's a very college, type of system that I think fans have been clamoring for.
We'll get more about that as well as the other assistant hires that need to be made as well as the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs rolls along. Tyler Head, Chris Clark on your Tuesday here on The Game. Welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler Head, Chris Clark along with you on your Tuesday here on the game. Talking all things Kendall Briles awaiting pen to meet paper for the hiring to become official as he'll take over as South Carolina's offensive coordinator for 2026. And, you know, one thing we talked about so much this year as a frustration for the 2025 version of this offense, Chris, was the fact that it lacked an identity. And I know Shula got up there on Wednesdays, talked about want to be balanced and want to run the ball and pass the ball the same amount of times, and didn't really accomplish that the way even they wanted to. But it was an offense, so you didn't really know what it was. They tried to do things, and they would mix things up from time to time, involve some tempo, involve some RPOs, get the receivers involved in the run game at times. And, that stuff would happen on the opening drive. They get away from it. It just wasn't consistent. You didn't really know what the identity of this offense was compared to what we're getting in Kendall Briles, where he runs a veer and shoot offense that, again, one of the biggest factors we talked about when it came to making this hire was somebody running a college-friendly type of offense. Well, guess what? That's a college-friendly offense. It doesn't exist in the NFL because of the way the field's laid out and all that kind of stuff. So you're getting a guy that runs a college-centric offense that has an established identity of what he wants to do.
Yeah, there's certainly an identity. There's a system. And like I was saying earlier, it's a system that's been adaptable. Kendall Briles obviously was at Baylor for quite a while, and many years you'd look up and they were not only scoring tons of points and running lots of plays, but they were running the football extremely, extremely well. You look at some of his other stops, maybe it's they're passing the football more effectively, and those numbers are really, really big. So it's a system that can adapt to their personnel. They're not afraid to, take the quarterback off. Obviously, with Lenore Sellers, you have a talent that, is unique because he can make all the throws. He can run the football for you. He can scramble out of there. He can make things happen. And I'm very, very intrigued to see. I know what people are going to say. Well, Sellers going to be back. I think there's a very, very good chance of that, all things considered. And I'm sure more of those conversations are going to continue. But Sellers is a guy who I think is a unique talent that you start thinking about him in this offense and how he can be used. It's really, really intriguing to think about. But they're not afraid to, take the quarterback off the field and direct snap to receivers and running backs and, run trick plays. There's a lot of RPO element in this when you have a quarterback who can not only execute that, but make a lot of throws downfield or make easy throws. It's a system, Tyler, that I think has played positively into some of the areas that South Carolina struggled with that we've been documenting, not just this season, but for years. It's a system that I think makes it better on offensive linemen, better on the quarterback. A lot of times they're getting the football out very quickly. And then you think about Lenore Sellers, a talent like him plugged into the offense, and you can start thinking about, what could be. Another thing that you look at Kendall Briles, some of the stops he's made in the past during his coaching career, he's been able to take offenses that were really struggling before he got there and orchestrate a turnaround and an improvement, from before he got there to year one. And certainly I think the more time you have to fully implement the system, the better.
Yeah.
But this is a hire that I think could reap some immediate dividends for South Carolina's offense and unlock some of that potential that I think we feel is all there.
And I think the specific time frame to look at that could be more comparable to here is this time at Arkansas. And if we get time later on this week, we can really dive into those numbers and the specifics of that time a little bit more because, all right, at TCU, he's the play caller, but he's also under Sonny Dykes. So how much of the offense was Sonny Dykes' influence compared to what Kendall Briles wanted to do? He's been under Willie Taggart. He's been under Major Applewhite. He's been under Lane Kiffin. He was under his father, Art, when he was at Baylor. So for most of his career, he's always had an offensive-minded former play caller head coach that I'm sure has an influence on what the offense is or things that he calls and that kind of stuff. Arkansas is the one time, those couple seasons there, 20 to 22, where, like Sam Pittman, yes, is an offensive line coach, but I don't know how much of an influence he had on the offense that that Kendall Briles was running. So that may have been the best snapshot, and using a similar quarterback like KJ Jefferson to what you have here in Lenore Sellers, if he does indeed come back, that might be the best indicator on what this offense can be next season, where he seemingly had the most free reign when he was at Arkansas, which seems like what Beamer's going to give him here.
Well, I think, yeah, I mean, number one, to your point, I saw something the other day. Somebody said, Beamer needs to, let him do his thing and not meddle. I'm like, I've never heard of, the couple of times that we've heard of Shane Beamer getting involved have been in times where there's been immense struggles offensively. And, from my understanding, help South Carolina. Okay, we really need to streamline some things. And we saw like an example of that in 2022 against Tennessee. That was a really good example of that. But Shane Beamer lets his coaches coach. You don't hear of him meddling. I think that was just kind of a made up thing that you might make it up and kind of get mad about the possibility of it. There's every indication as Kendall Briles is going to have full free reign. But Tyler, I would say even, some of his other stops, yes, he's coached under some guys that have been play callers and really successful play callers. But the indications I've gotten is he's been in control of those offenses, even under Dykes. You think about his time. He was with Lane Kiffin at FAU.
Yep.
Lane Kiffin publicly said Kendall Briles has full control of the offense. We know at Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin's given control of the offense to Charlie Weiss Jr., who's their play caller. So he's had control of the offense for a lot of his career. The Arkansas stop was the time where maybe he didn't have, to your point, a guy above him that had, play calling experience to where you're wondering how much are they involved in it. But that time at Arkansas, he left there not because, of any production problems.
Sure.
He was in the mix for a couple of other jobs, ended up taking the TCU job. As you said, he's from Texas, but you go back and look at his resume, he's done some really, really good things across multiple stops.
Yeah, so again, we're waiting on the details of all that to be finalized and everything when it comes to Kendall Briles being the offensive coordinator. All signs point to that happening. And again, it's something that excites a lot of people. It's going to be a college-specific offense that, I've never had the opportunity to cover a veer and shoot team. I know about it. I know enough about it, but I'm interested to really kind of, throughout the offseason, dive into the specifics of this to kind of get an idea of what this offense is going to look like, how it's going to utilize certain players, what players are going to get in the transfer portal, because there's elements of this offense that maybe you don't quite have some of the personnel for right now. So how does that go coming up in about a month when the portal opens and trying to craft? Because, again, it's very much going to need to be done in the first year in terms of taking that step forward because, again, Beamer doesn't have time to sit around and wait. So what changes get made in the offseason to ensure this offense is as efficient as possible as soon as he gets here?
Yeah, that's going to be a key part of this, and I think we're all pretty ready, Tyler, to move on to that, right? Early signing day's finished. You know what you got there. And so once you get the OC in place and these other couple coaching hires, you're going to really be turning the page in full to the roster. So there's lots of retention conversations going on. What does that look like? And then you got the transfer portal. That's a position where, Shane Beamer talked about this on early signing day during his press conference. You got 3 scholarship running backs. You anticipate running back being a focus of the portal. Does South Carolina look to take a receiver? I think we're going to see a lot of activity in terms of both attrition and transfer portal activity as far as targets at offensive line. Tight end is another one, right? If Sellers comes back, that may be the only position that's untouched in terms of trying to find starting caliber players. Yeah. I think, maybe you put receiver in there, but I think if you could find a starting caliber receiver out of the portal, you go that route too. Carolina returns some tight ends, but there's going to be some new faces, and they need some new faces, I think, to integrate with some of the players that have done some good things here. But you're really trying to rebuild this offense and revitalize it, not just from a coaching staff standpoint, but also personnel. That's a big part of it to try to get where you want to be offensively.
Well, and, TCU offensive players start popping into the portal here soon. You start saying, okay, is that somebody that might want to follow Kendall Briles over here? Not a guarantee every single time, but you just never know. So we'll examine that as that does unfold. There are other hires to be made on this offense at running back coach and offensive line. We'll detail where that stands as of right now. Coming up next as we continue on with the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs on your Tuesday on the Game. All right, welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler and Chris along with you here on your Tuesday on the game. A reminder, again, today from 4 until 6, you can go hang out with Elijah and Preston from the early game, as they're going to be out at the new Guthrie's location at 339 Generations Way off Hartscrabble near Elders Pond Road, next to the Valvoline Firehouse out there. Hanging out from 4 until 6, participating in a chicken finger eating competition. I set the line at 15 and a half chicken tenders earlier on. And
Combined?
No, individually.
Okay.
They can both go over, and Jack and I both agreed Elijah wins.
Really?
Yes, I think Elijah wins. Again, just because Preston's bigger doesn't mean he's going to be able to put more down.
I wasn't saying that, you know. I mean, I just didn't know. I didn't know Elijah was a big eater like that.
Yeah. Apparently, he's told some stories about his younger days where he could put it down. So I have faith in him. I don't know if they're going to record this or what, but I'd be interested to see. I love food eating competitions anyway, and
Yeah.
I'm interested to see how this goes. You can also meet Xavier Leggett. He's going to be out there too, hanging out.
Oh man, I bet he could eat some chicken fingers too.
Probably could. I don't know if chicken is his fried animal of choice though. It's probably raccoon or squirrel.
Squirrel, yeah. That's what I was gonna say. You know, a key question I think with the chicken tender contest is like, do you decide to do a dip in like some ranch or honey mustard because that adds some fullness, some calories, but also it kind of changes it up a little bit.
Well, if you're
it's different from the hot dog eating contest where you're dipping the hot dog bun in water.
Yeah.
Which is ridiculous.
It helps it helps you mash it up and get it down a little bit easier. So I don't know. I did tell them earlier, because again, I watch like the Nathan's contest every single year, and I always heard Joey Chestnut drinks a ton of water to like stretch his stomach out. So I'm like, hey, drink a bunch of water, stretch your stomach out, you can eat more. So I don't know if anybody's going to take my advice, but we'll see. So that's today from
We'll see.
4 until 6. Guthrie's out at 339 Generations Way. You can come hang out with them. Also meet Xavier Leggett as well. We're obviously talking about coaching searches, coaching hires, and again, the Briles thing seems like it's all but done. Just kind of waiting to finalize the details there before that becomes officially official. Still in the process of working on both the running back coach hire as well as the offensive line coach hire. And you had the story up on Gamecock Central. The newest name to know when it comes to the search for a running back coach is Stan Drayton, currently at Penn State, former Temple head coach, has been in the NFL, has bounced around college football quite a bit. There was a plane that did go up to State College, Pennsylvania over the weekend. Was that for him? We don't know, but that is a name in the mix for this job as of right now.
Yeah, I can't say, Tyler. The plane tracking did not go as far as to know for sure whether or not Stan Drayton was on that plane that went to Columbia, to State College, back to Columbia, back to State College, back and forth, back and forth. I don't know for sure, but it makes a lot of sense given what we've heard about him. He's also got a tie and a connection to Shane Beamer, in that they both coached under Sylvester Croom at Mississippi State back in 2004. I had somebody tell me, that's it. That's the only connection. That's a long time ago. Well, it is a connection. They did coach together for a year. And from my understanding, they've stayed in touch. Shane Beamer has actually mentioned Stan Drayton publicly here at South Carolina. I think that it's a situation where Beamer's got a lot of respect for him. And Tyler, the hire would make a lot of sense. You look at Stan Drayton, great athlete himself back in Allegheny College. He was a 3-time football All-American, a 2-time track All-American. He coached Brian Westbrook at Villanova. Remember Brian Westbrook from, I think, the Eagles days back in the day?
Yep.
He's coached Ezekiel Elliott, Jarius Norwood. He's coached, I think, 7 different 1,000-yard rushers. And you're right, he's been at a lot of programs and a lot of big-time programs. Texas, he won a national championship at Florida. He won a national championship at Ohio State. So this is a guy that's got, a lot of cachet when he walks in a room, when he's recruiting running backs. He can talk about the guys that he's coached, some of whom are going to be very recognizable to prospects. I mean, if they're not, he can go back and say, hey, look at these guys I coached. So he's got a lengthy track record in college, and definitely a guy to know I mentioned earlier that South Carolina would like to get these hires done, if possible, basically in conjunction. Doesn't mean they'll all come out at the same time. Briles' name, obviously, and his deal being close has already come out, whereas the other two haven't. But Drayton is definitely on our radar as maybe at this point, Tyler, the guy to watch.
Yep.
And South Carolina would like to wrap up all of these hires, maybe even as soon as today, in terms of just getting the bones of the deal done.
Well, I think we all kind of felt like, and I don't know how much of an influence Briles has on these other two spots necessarily being filled, but it's obviously the OC job's the bigger deal, bigger hire to make. And once that happened, it felt like those other things were going to kind of fall in line pretty quickly there. But you're right. It feels like they kind of want to get this all done together, have one big meeting, approve all the contracts, announce it, have a presser later on this week or whatever it may be. Now, where do we stand as of right now when it comes to offensive line and what they're looking at for that? Again, you still have the option to retain or just keep Sean Elliott doing what he's doing, or you can move him back to tight end and make an outside hire at the offensive line coach spot.
Yeah, I think when you look at these other hires, one thing we did hear, one thing that we know, because Shane Beamer said it publicly and kind of was backed up from what we heard behind the scenes, is, certainly wanted to give the offensive coordinator input and significant input into what the remainder of the staff looks like. And so when you're having conversations with offensive coordinator candidates, that's something you have to get a feel for. Do you have a guy or two that you're interested in bringing? Does Shane Beamer have ideas on, hey, I would really, if I have an opportunity to go hire, for instance, a Stan Drayton, a guy that Kendall Briles has not coached with, I'd really like to make this happen. What do all parties think about this? And then you have to work it out. And so it certainly seems like Kendall Briles and Beamer are comfortable with where they're at. But Tyler, one of the positions, if you kind of could pick one as an offensive coordinator, what is my one position that I really want to have the most synergy with and the highest comfort level? It's probably the offensive line coach. It's just such a critical position. It's a critical position. We've seen that here, and that hasn't really gotten figured out yet. And South Carolina's had a lot of issues, so you got to get that right. But Kendall Briles has a pretty lengthy history with Randy Clements, who's a veteran offensive line coach. Right now, he's the assistant offensive line coach at TCU, but he's been, the guy for most of his career. And he spent time with Briles at Ole Miss. Sorry, not at Ole Miss. He spent time with him at Houston, at Baylor, FSU, and TCU. So he's been with him at several different stops along the way during his career. So high trust level there. Clements, veteran. He's been around a while. He's produced NFL draft picks. He's produced, I think there was a year he had 4 straight Big 12 Offensive Linemen of the Year. So certainly from a resume standpoint and just a fit standpoint, he's a guy that makes a lot of sense, and he's a guy that we've heard come up a lot in the last 24, 48 hours here.
Yeah, so we'll see if that all gets finalized here very soon. Again, we'll get the Board of Trustees meeting hopefully in the next day or so, approve all the contracts, and then we'll make everything officially official. And then folks head on what you need to bring in from the transfer portal and all that kind of stuff, as well as who's going to return. Because, again, that's the biggest question in all this, too, is, okay, now you're making these hires. Is that enticing enough for Lenore Sellers, Nick Harbor, those guys to want to come back? I know people are losing their minds over what Sellers put on Instagram and trying to dissect that 6 waves from Sunday. All right, well, he's wearing black. He's got his helmet on top of his head. What does this song mean? I don't know, maybe like the picture. I don't know. But we just like tracking flights, we try and unearth any kind of detail into anything we can get. And the Sellers, because he hasn't said anything publicly since the last game, like, okay, does this post tell us something? Is he being cryptic? What does that mean? Especially now that he knows who the offensive coordinator is going to be.
I tell you, man, the offseason is still young. In some ways, we already need football back here.
Yeah.
Because we have last week, Twitter hired about 3 different offensive coordinators.
Yep.
Briles wasn't coming. The program needed to be shut down. Everybody's transferring. Nobody's transferring. We need – maybe we don't need football, but we do need some clarity on some items. But, hey, things are progressing now, so maybe some of this will calm down.
I did find Wes's, hey, calm down, everything's fine, post last night very funny because, again, when the Briles stuff starts trickling out at the end of the week, like, okay, by the end of the weekend, they'll have something done, and they get to Monday night. It's like, oh my God, it's not done yet. He's not coming. Oh, we're panicking. We're gonna have to stick with Mike Furry, and it's like, chill. Everything's happening. Everything's fine. Just calm down.
I get it, but yeah, the jump to conclusions, Matt, from Office Space is a real thing. I mean, and the funny thing about it, Tyler, is that was actually the timeline. Like, you may think that the timeline was too long to start with, but I think a lot of people created an expectation of a timeline that wasn't reality. I mean, we said, hey, probably Monday, Tuesday, that's when they'd like to get these hires wrapped up. And they appear to be very much on track to actually do that.
So we'll wait the details of that. We'll come back, wrap up the hour. How do we do on buy or sell over the weekend? That's up next. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs here on the game. right, welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler and Chris wrapping up the hour here on your Tuesday on the game. And as we do each and every Tuesday, we have to recap how we did on buy or sell over the weekend. Chris, you went in with the 3-point advantage over Wes. You had a 7-point lead over me, so you had 46 points. Wes had 43 at 39. Did you keep up with how you did over the weekend? How do you feel about where your lead's at now?
Nope. I compartmentalize, Tyler.
Okay.
Once I make my picks, they're over, and then I wait until we come back. I don't even remember the questions a lot of the time. No offense.
All right.
I just try to compartmentalize them, and then I come in fresh with the reaction when you tell us how we did.
Well, you're the opposite of Wes because he clearly keeps up with it and will let us know when he gets things right.
He does.
Question number 1 on Friday was all 4 of the Power 4 Conference Championship games will be within 10 points. Obviously, we had blowouts in the SEC Championship, blowout in the Big 12 Championship, competitive games in the Big 10 and the ACC, but we all thankfully sold on that one.
Yes. We got 2 that were absolute blowouts. I mean,
not the 2
the other 2 very good games.
Well, okay, I guess we could have seen Texas Tech blowing out BYU, but I don't think anybody expected Georgia to win by 3 touchdowns. I think it's like, Virginia beat Duke by 20 points. All right, yeah, sure. But one of those games, definitely not one of the ones we thought would be a blowout.
Yeah, and I didn't even know, I don't think I picked which one. Just kind of law of averages when you got those 4 games. You just figure, hey, somebody's going to end up randomly blowing out a team. Somebody's going to tack on a late score and win by 11 points or something like that. So I didn't really have a great thought on who it was going to be. I didn't really think we'd have 2 blowouts either. I'm with you. I didn't have Georgia, thoroughly, resoundingly beating Alabama either, but that's what happened.
Buy or sell number 2, the loser of the Big 12 of the Big 10 championship game will not fall out of the top 3. I was the only one to buy this because, of course, Ohio State lost and still ended up being number 2.
Why did we sell that?
I don't know. It's a good question.
I think the logic was, I kind of remember talking through it. I think the logic was that, say I picked Georgia to beat Bama, not by 3 touchdowns, and I was kind of thinking they would be rewarded a little bit more by moving up. Somebody else would move up, and that maybe, you dock a team a little bit for either Ohio State or Indiana, it was going to be their first loss.
Right.
And so probably not a great pick on my part. It was, just kind of went with it. Didn't have very high confidence, but it makes sense, right?
Sure.
You don't really want to dock a team very much at all for dropping their first game of the season in a very, very competitive down-to-the-wire game, and it coming in the conference title game, right?
Right.
It totally makes sense.
Buy or sell number 3, Georgia and Alabama each had 2 scoreless quarters in their first matchup earlier on this year. Buy or sell, both teams would score in every quarter. Georgia did. Alabama, however, did not. Alabama only scored in the 4th quarter with their lone touchdown. We all did sell on that. So
good call. Good call.
There. Buy or sell number 4, Darian Mensah, Duke's quarterback, had his 2nd lowest passing total of the season against UVA in their first matchup, where he threw for 213 yards. Buy or sell, he would throw for over 300 yards on Saturday. You guys both sold and were correct. He only threw for 196, even though they did win the game.
And did you buy?
I bought. I thought.
Okay.
I thought they're going to be playing from behind in the entire game. It's like, okay, you got to throw the ball around. I didn't see them having a multi-score lead with 5 minutes to go, blowing that lead, and then still winning in overtime.
Wild game.
By the way, you missed our oddities of college football last hour, and just the fact that Duke won the ACC as a 7-5 team in the regular season, definitely one of the weirder things we've seen all year.
Yes. Well, and we're sitting here, I get because of how it's structured, how the playoff is structured, Tyler, but we're living in a world where somebody can win the ACC,
yes,
but not get in because they were 7-5, now 8-5 going in. We also have James Madison and Tulane in. Vandy sitting at 10-2, which is a weird thing to say also, and them being left out, right? You got Notre Dame left out. And then you've got Tulane matched up with a team in the playoff that already beat them 45-10. Like, there's a lot of weird things going on right now.
Beautiful, weird sport that we love so much. Last buy or sell, Texas Tech has the best run defense in the nation. BYU's LJ Martin was the Big 12's leading rusher going into the contest on Saturday. Buy or sell, he'd get over $130. We all sold on that. He only had 76 yards. BYU just couldn't seem to hold on to the ball. They kept turning it over in their own territory, and big reason why Texas Tech once again won that one in blowout fashion.
So let's recap now. Where are we at? Have you tallied the totals?
I have tallied the totals. You had 4 correct. Wes had also 4 correct. So you have 50 points now. Wes has 47, and I have 43. I also got 4 correct. So each of us got 4 right. So the margins did not change at all. We just have different totals now.
Okay.
So
we're getting closer and closer. We got a few more. We got several more weeks. There's still time for this team to change.
Not as much football to pick from this weekend. May have to dig into the FCS ranks a little bit to figure out some questions there. But I'll have something for Friday. Don't worry.
Okay. Sounds good.
There's your update on the buy or sell standings. Hopefully by this time tomorrow, we'll have some finalizations on hirings for South Carolina, and we'll certainly talk about that then. More conversation. I'll also let you hear from what Kendall Briles had to say explaining his offense at a coaching clinic a couple years ago, coming up next in the next hour as the halftime show starts. It is 107.5, The Game.